May 31st, 2002. I dreamed that it was dark here on the island, and I was walking from the canal side up to the house when I saw the outline of something unfamiliar in the place where my unused hammock sways. A very loud boat came down the canal and turned north on the creek. I watched the silhouette pass by and thought he must be going out to fish in the pre-dawn glow. Turning my attention back to the angled forms under the trees, I saw that it was a huge model of a house, cut into fragments and half buried in the dirt. The windows were all empty and black and burned from the inside out. There was nothing of any value left in the dollhouse. It seemed to be cut in half or half buried in the dirt, and the rooms were all disconnected and set at angles that would make it very difficult to bring them all back together into a usable structure. I saw the silhouette of my first husband, Mike Murdoch, on the ridge of the creek bank and followed him into the real house. Inside, my house didn't look the same at all. It was a mess of clutter and totally disorganized. Mike never said a word to me, but led me to some papers in plastic envelopes on the table. The sleeves were like the ones that all of the documents that were disputed by Don's children were kept in. I couldn't make out the text on the pages, but I noticed that my wedding date to Don was scribbled on the outer edge of one, and they all had a thin green border. There were other notes, like someone would take if they had me under surveillance around the time of my wedding, which was October 10th, 1991. All of the notes were in Mike's handwriting, and I found it odd, even in this dream, that I would remember Mike's penmanship so clearly, some 16 years after having been around him. I took a pen and drew a line around the outside edge of the green border, but even at the time, didn't know why. Everywhere I went in the house, I was being stalked by Mike, but felt he was pretty harmless, so I felt more annoyed than fearful. The meaning? I am not sure. It was a lucid dream and stayed with me this morning, but it still doesn't make sense. I felt like the contents of the plastic sleeves was probably important, but I couldn't see them then and couldn't even guess now what was in them or why I drew a green line on the sleeve, or why I drew a line on the sleeve. The burned out house where my sanctuary, my hammock, is supposed to be is pretty obvious. Under this current stress, I feel burned out and empty and lacking value because it's hard for me to fight for my own peace of mind. It is hard to ask Peter to leave and give me the space I need to rebuild because I feel like no person of any real value could be so selfish.